Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Open Studio here on Cape Town TV. You are watching. I'm your presenter for today's show. My name is Danny Kambo as always. And yes, we've got another amazing and informative show for you today, guys, because joining me in studio is an amazing gentleman who goes by the name of Khalib from an amazing organization called Right to Know campaign. Okay, so what they do is they make sure that the general public's right to information is preserved. And here to speak to us more about that is Khalib, like I mentioned. So, Khalib, welcome to the show.
Hi, Danny. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you are here. I like the smile. So I've got this sense that we're going to be doing a lot of talking today because this campaign is all about information and sourcing out information. So for those that's watching at home today that do not know you, that's hearing this about the first time, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, a bit of a background, where you're from, where you come from, your name?
So I'm a born and bred Cape Townian.
Yeah.
So I'm very pleased to be on Cape TV.
Yeah.
Cape Town TV. And I've got a legal background. I've been doing a lot of work in human rights and conflict transformation.
Okay.
And I guess that's part of the reason I got drawn to the Right to Know campaign as well. Because it's on the one hand around dealing with information and our right to information. But also it, through that, looks also at how we can deal with conflicts, I guess. Yeah. Because there's so much conflict around information. These days, fake news is the big buzzword.
He said, she said.
He said, she said. And of course, then we've got electioneering, politics. So can you believe what the politicians are saying on the election trail in the next couple of weeks? So there's always going to be conflict.
Yeah.
And information particularly is one of those sites of conflict, I guess. That's really interesting.
Wow. So Right to Know campaign, basically explains itself, but it's always nice to break it down, for people that's watching, just to give them a bit of information. What is Right to Know campaign?
So we started out in 2010
yeah.
As a result, or a response rather, to the secrecy bill. Your viewers may remember that government wanted to introduce legislation that would make a lot of information not available. At one stage, it would have been even your rates information could have been deemed to be confidential. So Rtk was a massive coming together of civil society, individuals and organizations to fight that secrecy bill. And I'm proud to say that it was a fight that we won. So the bill went through Parliament, but it has not seen the light of day, actually. So the President hasn't signed it into effect yet. So that's where we started. But work around secrecy then morphed into actually how can we get at information. And so access to information became quite an important aspect for the Right to Know. Recently we had our national summit, so just a few weeks ago, and we devolved into three main areas. One is participatory democracy. So how can we become active citizens? You can think about access to information. Once you get the information, what do you do with it? Right? So our participatory democracy work really is about opening up those spaces where decisions that affect us are being made. And so can we, and when we get the information, when we get access to those spaces, how do we as citizens then interact with that? So that's the first area. The second area is the right to protest. And we're seeing, so again, if you don't get a foot at, you keep on knocking at the door, and the door remains shut. One of the rights we have under the Constitution is then to take that to the streets, to protest about it, to petition. And so it's really important as a citizen's right that we promote and protect that right to protest and petition. And the third area, still in the sort of area of citizens' voice particularly, is around communications rights. And that is about how do we get, for example, more support for community media, like Cape Town TV, like community radio, but also how can we get already free, safe access to internet. We're being left behind And so we've got quite a big campaign around access to the internet.
Yeah. So what is the mandate with all this information you've given us now? What is the mandate of RTK?
So we're an advocacy group. We consist of people who are interested in these three areas and making sure that citizens' rights in relation to these three areas are protected, for one, are promoted, that we open up the space. And these are fundamental rights also under our Constitution. So our mandate, as is the mandate of every single citizen in South Africa, is to protect that Constitution and promote the rights therein. So that's where we take our cue from, if you like, is that we fought long and hard for the rights in our Constitution. And it feels like we still have to fight to make those rights a living rights. And, you know, we're up for the challenge.
Yeah, so is that in line with your mission and vision, or have you been achieving, you know, what your mission and vision has been set out to be?
Absolutely. So we've not, so since 2010, our mission, our vision really is a South Africa, particularly, where citizens are able to give expression to their full basket of rights. And in order to do that, they need access to information, they need to be able to participate in democracy, they need not to be clamped down.
Okay, just on that, Khalid, we're going to take a short break, okay? So for the viewers that's watching at home, today is Information Day, all right? So I want you, as you are sitting there, to clear up your mind, open up your mind to learn new things and also to take in as much as you can. So do stay tuned because we'll be back after the break. All right, guys, welcome to What If You Just Tuned In. As always, we say you are not too late, guys. It's always time to learn something new. Always time to get to know our guest here in studio, because joining me in studio today is a lovely gentleman who goes by the name of Khalid for an amazing organization called Right to Know campaign. Okay, we spoke about his background, his history, also the background and history of the campaign and how it came about. Now, just to continue with our conversation, Khalid, can you just tell us what you guys actually do? Yeah.
So we're an advocacy group, and it means that we work both at grassroots level and at the policy level. Okay. So we interact with legislation, if you like, and parliament, and then we try and make that relevant and real for people on the at the grassroots level. One of the main areas of our work, we've got three areas. One of the main areas is around participatory democracy and being active citizens within that. And I guess in the next 4 weeks or so, that's going to be put to the test as we get closer to 8th of May and our national and provincial elections. So the work that we're wanting to do in relation to that is really to get communities that we work with clued up, asking questions of political parties. If you have to give your vote to a political party, what is it that you want them to do for you and make the change in your life? So there's something around just looking at the manifestos and busting those, right? And getting citizens to challenge political parties across the spectrum on what they say they will do. But we also want to monitor the elections for incidents of hate speech. Just recently we saw, just over the weekend in KwaZulu-Natal, an outbreak of xenophobia. And so election periods are really quite fraught and tense situations, and so vulnerable groups often get targeted. So we want to monitor for that, and then we also want to just see whether the IEC can deliver a free and fair and relatively violence-free election. So that gives you a little bit of sense of the kind of scope of work that we do in terms of our participatory democracy. It's both about open meetings, but also about the strength of our institutions, whether that's at a local council level, a sub-council, for example, at the city, provincial legislature, or the national legislature. So that, I think, is quite an important aspect. It means about how do we get information out of those structures, but also how do we interact with them. Yeah, so that's the one chunk of work that we do. The other chunk of work that we do is around the right to protest, I said earlier.
Wow.
But that you have to see as a tail end of our participatory democracy work. So when you don't get any joy knocking on the door, you have to take to the streets.
Yeah.
But very often we've seen that the reaction to taking to the streets has also been a harsh reaction.
Yeah.
So quite a heavy-handed, often security response. So part of the work around right to protest is to ensure that citizens, when they do take to the streets, do so within the framework of the Constitution, and that their rights to protest are protected. We also are looking very carefully at the question around surveillance, because we've seen, I mean, the stories coming out of state capture about how journalists have been surveilled, how activists have been surveilled, and ordinary citizens as well. In Johannesburg, currently they're rolling out a security camera network that will record CCTV footage, but is being done by a private company, not by the city of Joburg itself. In Cape Town, we've got a situation where there may be drones flying around, but the city doesn't have a license to operate drones, so that's been given to a private company. Okay. Now, we should be worried about, I think we've called for CCTV cameras to be brought into our communities in order to secure us, right? From crime, from violence, etc. But we also should be concerned, or aware at least, of what is happening with that footage. And who is in control of that footage. So very important for us is where my personal information, for example, including my movements on closed-circuit TV, is being captured. Where is that going? And so these are some of the questions that we ask. And then following on from that, with Big Brother watching us, how is Big Brother watching you on the internet? We see...
who is Big Brother?
Well, you know, he's not my brother. Maybe he's your brother, I don't know. He's just the Big Brother. Okay. And on the internet, we're seeing that the internet is becoming more and more of an unsafe space. So we've recently passed legislation in South Africa around cyber crimes, and we're wanting to tackle cybersecurity. But that's a thin line to be walking, because you want to protect people against cyberbullying, for example. We see that, and particularly young people in our schools, you know, on emails, on websites, on Facebook, on, you know, all of these different platforms, where people actually get attacked. We've seen people committing suicide as a result of cyberbullying. So that's a very serious problem, and a very serious problem for our young people. But you can also get to a point where there's too much security, and then the freedom to actually express yourself then gets limited. And exactly where are we in relation to that is something that we want to work on.
Wow, that is a lot, you know, and it is a lot of good information, so to speak. And I hope for those that's watching at home, you're thinking to yourself, are you really safe? You know, you are being watched 24/7, are you really safe? So these are more things that we're going to tackle when we come back from the break. So I urge you to please stay tuned, stay in your seats, buckle up, because there's more information to come after this, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody. You're just in time. We're almost at the end of the show, but you're just in time to get as much information and also acquire as much knowledge as you can, because joining me in studio is an amazing gentleman who goes by the name of Khalid from an amazing organization called the Right to Know campaign. They've been operating all over South Africa and the greater Cape Town. So Yeah, we've spoken a lot about the background of the organization. We've spoken a lot about the background of Khalib. So if you missed that, it's not too late because Khalib is going to take us back through that, okay? He's going to take us back into what we need to know, what is the importance of Right to Know campaign. So Khalib, just to continue our conversation, for those that missed it or for those that's continuing with us, just, take it away. Tell us, what do you do?
So we have those three areas that I spoke about earlier. One, the participatory democracy, making sure that we're active citizens. Yeah. Secondly, around protest and surveillance, making sure that we're not being spied upon by Big Brother. Yeah, yeah. And then the third area is around communication rights. And maybe I want to just spend a little bit of time on that, because one way of being an active citizen is also to get involved in community media. Yeah. Community media offer a really useful channel to get our voice out there. Mm-hmm. So rather than taking only to the streets, but we can also make use of platforms like Cape Town TV. Yeah. This is a community media station. We have a number of community radio stations, and I think citizens need to have a closer relationship with our community media. These are platforms where we can get our stories out. And it really saddens me that actually our community don't take the opportunity that they have to actually speak to other citizens through the community media. So Rtk is running currently a Love Your Community Media campaign, where we're trying to activate community members to become involved. Both in the production of stories, which is of course the one thing, but also even in the management of community media. Yeah. Just this past weekend, for example, was the AGM for Cape Town TV. Yeah. And there was a call for CBOs, for example, to become members of Cape Town TV. This is a wonderful opportunity to make sure that we always profile community voices. So that's a really important campaign that's currently on the go for us. And then we can't ignore the fact that we're 4 weeks, 5 weeks away from a national and provincial election. And so this is an opportunity that I think citizens must take to get their voice out there as well, to really engage with each other around what are the important issues for them that they would like to see, and engage the political parties as they're coming and making all sorts of promises to us, some of which will never fly because they're just promises. But to hold political parties accountable, that if I give my vote to you, what is it that you're going to do to me? So starting that conversation, there are many conversations happening around Cape Town in particular, but around the country as well. In relation to that, I think all of us have an obligation to become part of that conversation. And so we'll be hosting a couple of community town hall meetings where we interrogate the political party manifestos, for example, and get citizens, ordinary people, to engage with those manifestos, not in a rally kind of way, but really critically, by thinking through what are the political parties saying to me and what does it mean, rather than just being spoken to by a political party. Yeah. So so those two aspects of our communication rights work, I think, is really urgent and alive for us in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, Cape Town is Cape Town. We've got issues around identity. Who's a Cape Townian, who's not a Cape Townian, and identity politics, I think, becomes quite is alive for us in Cape Town. And so that also is something that we really have to engage with. Last 20 years we've not done enough to build bridges, and so also the work of Rtk, but social justice organizations across the board, is to create a togetherness, I guess, across the peoples of South Africa. That's the promise of our constitution. We work as Rtk on constitutional rights. That's also a promise we want to deliver on. So how can we use those rights to build a nation rather than keep us apart? And so, yeah, Rtk works in the Western Cape, in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, but we're also active in the mining communities in the Northwest Province. We have work that we're doing in Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Yeah. And then maybe one last thing is that given that we have such a big footprint, it's also important, I think, for us in Cape Town, not to only think about ourselves in Cape Town, what are the points of contact with what people are experiencing elsewhere in the country. Yeah. So maybe, yeah, finally, this is a national and provincial election. We need to reach out to people on the national level, on the provincial level, beyond just Cape Town.
Yeah. So for those that's watching, you know, that want to get more information while we wrap up, how can they get a hold of you? How can they get a hold of Rtk, Right to Know campaign?
So I think we'll flash the contact details on screen, but you can drop me an email at ghalib.r2k@gmail.com. You can visit our website, www.r2k.org.za. You can follow us on Twitter at R2K campaign. But more importantly, come and give up some of your time. Yeah. Join the campaign, right? We're always looking for volunteers. More important, we're looking for supporters. So if what we've been talking about excites you, give us a call, join us.
Yeah, and there you have it, viewers. Give them a call, join them, check out the website. RTK is abbreviation, and the Right to Know campaign is the name. So go out there, give your best, do what you can, acquire as much knowledge as you can. And yes, we've come to the end of the show. We don't want it to end, but unfortunately we have to. So a big thank you, guys, for those that's watching at home. A big thank you to you, Khali, for joining us today. Guys, it does not end here. Please go out and check out the social media platforms. Go out and check out the website. But for me, Dennis, it's today. Goodbye for now. I'm from the Cape Town TV crew. Bye-bye till next time. Thank you.